Now, if you go to an Islamic bookstore or go online to islamicbookstore.com or islamicity.com or any of the others, then you will find there, very easy to obtain, prominently displayed, works by two men, one Sayyid Qutb and another Sayyid Abul Alam al-Dudi. Now, Qutb was an Egyptian who was a foremost theorist of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the first modern terrorist group. The Muslim Brotherhood, rather, was the forefather of Al-Qaeda and Hamas, the group in Israel that blows up people on buses and in restaurants and then celebrates the victory, so-called. Qutb was a very, very indefatigable scholar of Islam. He wrote a 30-volume commentary on the Quran, which is quite a feat in itself when you consider that the Quran is a very short book, actually. It's shorter than the New Testament. And so to write a 30-volume commentary is going some way. He wrote, extrapolating from the ideas that I have outlined here already, he wrote that it is not the function of Islam to compromise with the concepts of Jahiliyyah. Jahiliyyah is the society of unbelievers. Any state that is ruled by a non-Islamic legal system, Qutb would have considered to be in a state of Jahiliyyah. It's the pre-Islamic period of ignorance. The periods before various Islamic states converted to Islam are also known as Jahiliyyah, the period of ignorance. And he says it is not the function of Islam to compromise with the concepts of Jahiliyyah, which are current in the world, or to coexist in the same land together with a Jahili system. Islam cannot accept any mixing with Jahiliyyah. Either Islam will remain or Jahiliyyah. No half-half solution is possible. The foremost duty of Islam, this is Qutb, is to depose Jahiliyyah from the leadership of man. In other words, any state that is constituted by any system, the U.S. Constitution, the British parliamentarian system, any state that is so constituted that is not obeying Islamic law must be fought. Maududi, the same thing. Non-Muslims, he said, have absolutely no right to seize the reins of power in any part of God's earth, nor to direct the collective affairs of human beings according to their own misconceived doctrines. If they do, the believers would be under an obligation to do their utmost to dislodge them from political power and make them live in subservience to the Islamic way of life. Now, these books are readily available, and they're readily available because they are not tiny minority of extremists who have hijacked the religion. They are mainstream ideas within the Islamic community. They are backed up by 14 centuries of Islamic history that is marked by jihad warfare, and they are backed up by the theology that is elaborated in the Quran, in the Hadith, and in Islamic law. When the terrorists act today, they are acting according to these principles. They are waging war in order to unite the Islamic world under a caliph. The caliph was the successor of Muhammad as the leader of the Islamic community. Because of Muhammad's nature as a warrior prophet, the caliph also was both a religious and a political and military leader. And the caliphate was abolished by the secular Turks in 1924 in an attempt to destroy political Islam and to establish Islam after the fashion of Christianity and Judaism in the West as religions that would be easily compatible with a system that separated religion from the state. It didn't work. As a direct reaction to the abolition of the Caliphate, the Muslim Brotherhood, the first modern terrorist organization, was founded in 1928 in Egypt by Hassan al-Banna. And Hamas and Al-Qaeda come from that. It was a direct reaction to the abolition of the Caliphate was this reassertion of political Islam through these violent terrorist groups. What Osama wants to do, what all the others want to do, all the people who are committing violence in the name of Islam, from Indonesia to the Philippines to Thailand to Kashmir to Nigeria to Chechnya to Bosnia, all over the world, there is in common, they uniformly say, they want to reestablish the Caliphate, to restore Islamic law, which is not fully enforced in the Islamic world today except in Saudi Arabia and Iran, reassert Islamic law, and reestablish Sharia, which is Islamic law, over those states, and then to wage offensive jihad against the West, because it is one of the duties of the Caliph to at least every 10 years stage a campaign against the non-Muslim states. They will constantly refer to 1924, the date of the abolition of the Caliphate, as the beginning of all their troubles, because it was considered to be the loss of the ability to wage offensive jihad and the loss of the unity of the Islamic world. This is what they say they are fighting for. This is why they took down the towers on 9/11, why there were the London bombings, why there were the bombings in Spain on March 11th, 2004, why there have been 2,647 people killed in the world in the name of Islam since 9/11. Now, if that's what they say, then we have a duty to pay that attention and to take it with the utmost seriousness and not rush to say, no, Islam has nothing to do with this. Because if that's what they say, then the foremost duty of moderate Muslims is not to reassure us, not to reassure non-Muslim Westerners that Islam is a religion of peace, but to convince those guys that they're misusing Islam, if they can do so. But as of yet, there is no American Muslim advocacy group, and there is no group of Muslims in the world anywhere that is making any organized effort to convince the jihad terrorists that their version of Islam is wrong. Not anywhere. There are groups in the United States and elsewhere that are taking great pains to convince non-Muslims that Islam is really peaceful and that all this is not really legitimately Islam. But the problem with saying nothing about that and letting it pass by unquestioned is that it leaves us open to being blindsided from attacks from quarters from which we are not willing to admit to ourselves that attacks may come. In other words, we are leaving ourselves open because we are saying that there's this group of people and we're giving them the presumption that every one of them is absolutely loyal to the United States. And there's such a rush to find moderate Muslims that there have been people with terrorist ties who have gone to the White House. There are groups with terrorist ties that are giving sensitivity training on how to deal with Muslims to the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI. And these people have influence at the highest levels of government because there's such an enormous desire on the part of official Washington to say this is not a war with Islam, and of course it isn't, and shouldn't be. But there is such an anxiety to find moderates and to show ourselves to have a face that is positive toward Islam that we are not paying sufficient attention to genuine national security issues that are raised by some of the people that official Washington is dealing with. And this all comes from this political correctness, multiculturalism, and fear to confront the elements of Islam that are giving rise to jihad violence.